Welcome back to the channel. In my last video, I introduced you to one of the most powerful tactics in street fighting, the de-escalation and first strike stance. Now, if you've already watched it, you now understand how to command a situation, control a potential threat, and stay poised to strike the moment danger gets too close. Now, if you missed that game-changing lesson, don't worry, I've got you covered. Click on the link above or check in the description down below to catch up, because trust me, you'll want to master that deceptive stance first. What we're diving into today will make it even more devastating. Let's check it out. So here's the deal. Knowing how to stand your ground in a fight is one thing, but turning that stance into a devastating weapon, that's the difference between being someone's target and being their worst nightmare. Today, I'm going to teach you the most practical, hard-hitting strikes you can launch directly from the first strike stance. Moves designed to neutralize an attacker before they even realize what hit them. And it doesn't stop there. We're also going to dive into some of my psychological tactics that will give you a massive edge in any fight. These mental strategies can shatter your opponent's confidence, disrupt his thought process, and put you in complete control from start to finish.
It's really important to talk about right before you launch your strike, what do you look at? Now, when there's a pre-contact scenario between you and the adversary, there's going to be some kind of dialogue. And there are people out there, you may be one of them, who has trouble looking people in the eye. It's really important to make eye contact. If you don't make eye contact, it's perceived as weakness. And that could actually make things a heck of a lot worse for you. So it's important to make eye contact. And you don't want to stare them down. You don't want to get into this eye war where you're staring each other down in the pre-contact situation, because what it does is it's going to take your attention away from the tactics that you have to deploy. So if you do have trouble looking people in the eye, you can always focus on looking at his eyebrows. It looks as if you're looking into his eyes, but you're not. So if you have to do that, do it. Now, when you actually start striking, never look at his eyes ever again, because it provides no vital data. It's a technique I call, which is ghosting. You make his face as if there's nothing there, so there's no features. It also helps with the important concept of pseudo-speciation. That's the process of assigning subhuman qualities to your adversary. And the reason why you do this is because it makes it easier to deploy your offensive techniques without any moral apprehension.
If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to smash the like button. It's a simple way to support the channel and also let me know that you want more content like this. Don't forget to subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you never miss a lesson that could actually make a difference in a real fight. And finally, if you know someone who could benefit from this knowledge, be sure to share this video. It might just help them stay safe. Together, let's spread the word about real self-defense.
The offensive techniques you deliver in a first strike scenario are predicated on three factors. Number one, the angle of the target. Number two, the range of the target. And number three, the use of force justification. Now, as I've mentioned in all of my books and videos, there are three ranges of unarmed combat: kicking, punching, and grappling range. And naturally, you need to have first strike techniques that can be applied in each range of combat. However, you have to understand that kicking range is seldom used. Anybody who's experienced real-world combat knows that combat really occurs with the arms, hand-to-hand combat. So I want you to understand there are reasons and scenarios to throw kicking techniques, and I'm going to show you a couple of kicking techniques, but it's few and far between that you're really going to use it, and only used in limited circumstances, and make certain that you use kicking judiciously. So in the kicking range of unarmed combat, we have two kicks that we utilize in my first strike system. Tommy, obviously we have the bad guy, I'm the good guy. He's going to back up a little bit more, Tommy. So we're in the kicking range. I'm de-escalating the situation. I'm trying to diffuse the situation. I really don't want to engage in combat with this individual. But if it's justified and warranted, I'm going to strike first. So from a de-escalation stance, I have two options. I can either deliver the push kick to the quadricep or a vertical kick to the groin. I favor the push kick because generally most people will face you with some sort of a stance. Therefore, their leg is going to be facing forward, so their target is closer to you. So therefore, the push kick would be a more appropriate tool. Now, Tommy stands directly in front of me. There are a lot of uneducated people in the street who will just stand there throw their chest out. They go through this entire ritual of trying to intimidate you. That's where the groin is exposed. And from a de-escalation stance, you put your hands on your hips, Tommy. Yeah, they do this all the time. I faced this before. This is where a vertical kick to the groin would be effective. So push kick, vertical kick, those are the only two kicks you ever need to use in a first strike scenario. When talking about the first strike techniques in the punching kicking range, we really have two. We have the finger jab to the eyes and the rear palm heel to the chin or nose. That's it. Two linear techniques you would utilize from this reference point. Finger jab, rear palm heel. Which one you use is dependent on the situation and, again, the use of force justification. Very important. And I also mentioned that when you're in grappling range, there are also techniques. So we talked about grappling range de-escalation as opposed to the punching kicking de-escalation. From this reference point, we have two very effective techniques. We have something called a short arc hammer fist, which is delivered to the bridge of the nose, exclusively to the bridge of the nose. And we have horizontal elbows to the side of the head, the temple, the chin, the jaw, in some cases even the center of the face if he turns towards you during the situation. We also have diagonal elbows going down and diagonal elbows going up. Those are your close quarter techniques. So now we're talking about delivering first strikes in the punching kicking range. So from our de-escalation stance, as I've said before, we have the finger jab to the eyes and the rear palm heel to the chin or nose. Now the chin or nose is going to be dependent upon the height. If he's super tall, you're probably going to get that chin at a 45-degree angle. If he's shorter, you may even just hit the nose head on. It all depends on who you're fighting, who you're faced with in the pre-contact scenario. So again, we have the finger jab to the eyes, rear palm heel to the chin. In grappling range, the hand positioning changes. So my hands are side by side, my elbows are pointing down. From here, I can launch the short arc hammer fist. And all it is a quick snap using the edge of the hand to make contact with the bridge of the nose. So as I talk, I gesticulate, I whip the hand down. It's in a circular type of motion. It's not a wind-up. I don't want you guys to pull your hands back. That would be telegraphic. So as I'm talking to him, I just launch the shot right there. And of course, after you deliver, and I'm going to say this again and again and again ad nauseum, after you deliver your first strike, you must compound it with other techniques such as the lead straight, rear cross, hooks, uppercuts, shovel hooks. Lots of different techniques you can utilize, but you have to keep the pressure on him. I don't want you delivering a first strike, step back and watch the residuals. You got to go back in, you have to flood him. Now, as I mentioned before, thanks, Tommy. What I mentioned before in my book, Sinister Self-Defense, first strike is the lowest on the use of force continuum, right? We have the first strike, then we have combat pressure points, then we have Widowmaker, and then finally we have Savage Street Fighting. So I'm teaching you the lowest level of the use of force application. Okay, so that's why we're going to compound it with hand strikes. We're not going nuclear like Widowmaker or combat pressure points or, of course, Savage Street Fighting. And again, I discuss all of this in my book, Sinister Self-Defense. So Tommy, come back out. De-escalating, punching, kicking range. We have the finger jab. We have the rear palm heel. If the situation gets closer and I'm de-escalating or going to deliver a first strike from this grappling range, short arc hammer fist, horizontal elbow is very effective. Also, diagonal elbow coming up and a diagonal elbow coming down. Again, it depends on the height. Don't just think in terms of one dimension. He could be coming up a flight of stairs or coming down a flight of stairs. It could be in a very confined environment like an elevator. So everything has to make sense for you to apply these techniques. And it's just like pulling tools out of a toolkit, right? Sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you need a hammer. It depends on what you're working on. It depends on the situation, depends on the circumstance. So just remember, these are nothing more but tools that you will utilize in a self-defense situation, and it's up to you to know how to pick it at the right time. Again, you just can't pick out techniques and tools because it feels good or there's a comfort level. It has to be justified legally and morally. It's very, very important you get this in your head. So you've got to really run these scenarios through your head saying, when would I use this? When would I use that? In a life and death situation, let's say, for example, I was de-escalating and I really wanted to take this guy out, I would use the web hand strike right to the throat. And that's a quick pop right to the throat, and then I would follow up with another technique and another until the adversary is neutralized. So again, they're all different types of tools to use in this situation. It's a question of which one you pick. Generally, when you want to work on your first strike, specifically your finger jab technique, I highly recommend these mannequin heads. The reason why I like them better than the body opponent bag is because if you have a training partner, he can actually move this target as you talk, so you'll be working on more realistic dynamic target acquisition. Now, if you don't have a mannequin head, or you don't have a training partner, of course, the body opponent bag is just the best there is for you to practice finger jab strikes. But this is excellent. Tommy, why don't you come out? Developing the rear palm heel in the first strike is quite simple. Your training partner is going to hold the mitt. He's going to make sure he holds it up at head level. 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet, that's a good height to start with. He's going to make his arm nice and tense. He's going to give us some resistance. And from your de-escalation stance, you're going to launch the rear palm heel right into the target. Now, it's important not to pull your hand back and telegraph it. Okay, make sure this is a little bit more flat. Perfect, Tommy. So from here, we're de-escalating. We're assessing the situation. It's morally justified to strike, legally justified to strike, and there's our strike, our palm heel. The next shot will be dependent upon his probable reaction dynamics. How does he react to that palm heel? What's the probability of him bending forward or falling back? It all depends on what strike you do. So if I deliver a rear palm heel, chances are, based on experience, when I have delivered this in real combat situations, they actually bring their hands to their chin and they buckle forward. So they're actually coming closer to you. So they may change from a punching range to now a grappling range compound attack. Just be prepared for that. It's very important to understand probable reaction dynamics, and I talk about it in my book, Maximum Damage. You can check it out if you want to look into that further. The next technique we're going to cover is the short arc hammer fist, Tommy. Now, when I hold the short arc hammer fist, I'm going to hold it approximately head level. Do not hold the mitt perpendicular to the ground. You want to hold it at an angle because this is replicating the actual slope of the nose, right? That's what we're attacking with the short arc hammer fist, the nose. Now, I have used this technique several times in real combat, and let me tell you what happens. When you hit the nose with the short arc hammer fist, it explodes. I'm talking, it is a mess. Blood is everywhere. The nose is incredibly vascular. So besides blood that sprays all over his shirt, his tear ducts are activated, so his vision is impaired. The blood is forced back into the throat, so he's going to have trouble swallowing and breathing. And this is just your first strike. You're now going to compound it with other techniques to neutralize your attacker. So just understand, it's going to be messy when you deliver a short arc hammer fist correctly. So when I hold the mitt up, I'm going to hold it approximately at a 45-degree angle. Tommy's hands are going to be a little bit closer. And as he gesticulates and talks, he's not going to be rigid. So he's going to communicate. He's going to tell me he's sorry, he didn't mean to cut me off. He understands I'm angry. And as he's talking, the hands strike. We don't have it in a static motion because, again, we don't want inertia to set in. So the idea is Tommy's going to whip it down to the bridge of the nose, just like that. So, and the motion is not a snapback. It's almost like it's almost type of a rotary type of motion. So you hit and come back, you hit and come back. You don't hit and retract. So Tommy's hands are up in de-escalation again, grappling range, and you're just going to whip it, just like that. And think about it too. You don't have to go all the way down with it. Once you make contact, bring it right back up. Because when you deliver that short arc hammer fist right from here, the next shot comes up, the next shot comes up. So you don't want to have it linger low. So just whip it real quick. What light are you talking about? Did I cut you off?
I don't. Back there at the corner.
I don't
the
recall.
light back there at the corner. You didn't see it?
You know what? I did cut you off. I am really sorry.
Sorry's not good enough.
Look, what do you want?
You're out of control, man. You need to calm it down.
Calm down. I'm not the one who's raising my voice.
Well, you're the one who cut me off.
All right, so what can I do to make this better for you?
There's nothing.
That's the shot. Now, another first strike technique, which is only used in deadly force situation, is the web hand strike into the throat. Very, very devastating technique. And again, you should only use this in situations that warrant the application of deadly force. Now, obviously, you can't do a web hand strike into a focus mitt. You'll end up tearing your thumb. So when Tommy holds the actual mitt for, like, for example, a palm heel strike, finger jab strike, instead of hitting the mitt, we actually hit the belly of the forearm. So it gives us a nice cylindrical type of target, just like the throat or the windpipe. And what we're we're just very going to lightly strike it with the webbing of the hand. So right here, as for example, if I'm going to strike, let's say for the eyes up here, I would simply go lower, and there's the strike. Now, we don't torque the hips. You don't need that because the throat is such a sensitive target. You don't need body torque. You don't need that type of power generator. You're really using your elbow, and you're driving it in super fast into the throat. So you can imagine what that would do to your throat. It would just wreak havoc on the individual. So you can practice this on your partner's forearm. And again, start slowly, build it up. Now, people have asked me, isn't there a possibility your thumb could actually get caught and tear? Yes, that can happen. A lot of things can happen in a fight. Again, risk versus reward. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And again, with practice makes perfect, and perfect makes survivors. Also, the more you practice, the more accurate you're going to be. Start out slowly with your partner until you develop the neuromuscular coordination.
That wraps up today's lesson. You've now got the tools to turn your de-escalation first strike stance into a devastating weapon with strikes and the psychological tactics that give you the upper hand in any fight. But remember, practice makes perfect, and perfect makes survivors in the streets. Take these training tips I've taught you and start sharpening your skills at home. You never know when you're going to need them next. Until next time, train hard, train smart, and be safe.